Now, as we were just doing that, I lost our script, and now I found it. But I think the majority of people on this call know that I'm seldom at a loss for words, so I'll just go ahead and speak from the heart. Thanks everybody for being here tonight. My name is Ed Ewing. I'm the Deputy Director here at BikeWorks. I'm thrilled to be here and thrilled to have so many of you here tonight. BikeWorks, for any of you who do not know, we are located in Southeast Seattle. We believe that the bicycle is a vehicle for change for youth and also for adults. There's three aspects to our work: youth and adult programming, our recycle reuse program or warehouse, and also our bike shop, which proceeds from that go to fuel our youth and adult programming. In case you didn't know, there's a bit of news, a bit of transition at BikeWorks now. Our executive director of 10 years, Deb Salz, is stepping down, is leaving, and is joining an amazing organization in Minneapolis, Minnesota called Social Venture Partners. Deb, thank you for your leadership and for positioning BikeWorks for in such a great way, not only the past 10 years, but especially this year of 2020 during these very, very interesting and trying times. So thank you for your leadership. A bit more news is as Deb transitions to the next phase of her career, I am transitioning to the next phase of my career as interim executive director here at BikeWorks. And then also in January, we'll be appointed as executive director here at BikeWorks. And I'm thrilled and honored to be leading such an amazing organization. This is a representation of my professional career, the culmination of my professional career and my passion for bikes and for youth and for community, and I can't wait to get started. So thank you again, Deb, for your leadership. For those of you who are wanted more information about BikeWorks, please visit our website, and also please check out our commitment to racial and social equity. There's a link there you can check out as well. So, but again, thank you for being here tonight, and with that, Elise, you want to take it away?
Thank you, Ed. So one more point about BikeWorks, and as we get into the oddities that exist in the cycling industry, just a reminder that at BikeWorks we process anywhere from 6,000 to 8,000 bike donations every single year, and those donations power our youth and adult programs, let us keep them free and sliding scale. They also get refurbished and sold in our social enterprise bike shop, and they go towards our free bike giveaway, the Bikes for All program. So some of those donations are odd, obscure, weird, wild, and wonderful. And whether we're refurbishing bikes, stripping them for parts, recycling them, or using them tonight for art and humor, all bike donations are treasures to us. So I just wanted to say that. Also, for those of you who celebrate Hanukkah, happy first night of Hanukkah, and if you don't, happy holidays, happy New Year. So before we get started with tonight's presentation, we're going to take a quick poll to get a feel for who's in the room. So Jess, if you would start our poll. So this poll is seen on Bike Crap, the zine that sparked tonight's presentation. So this is just a matter of opinion. In your opinion, what is the oddest bicycle innovation in this list as seen in Bike Crap Bingo? Get the zine to see the whole list. So that would be a homemade motor or e-bike, a Presta-valve hole drilled out to fit a Schrader valve, mismatched crank arms, hydraulic rim brakes, stem with built-in suspension. Maybe you don't think any of these are odd, which is a right answer in its own way. And maybe all of this is gibberish to you, which is also a right answer. So I'm just gonna give everyone another 30 seconds or so to fill out the poll. Looks like we have about 75% voted. And in just a few seconds now, I'm going to end the poll and I'm going to share results. So I think you should be seeing the results. I love that a full quarter of everyone said that none of these are odd in the spirit of the bike crap and wild and wonderful ethos. And I also love that another close to quarter of everyone said that hydraulic rim brakes are the oddest. I think we might be getting a peek of those tonight. No spoilers, but good choice, everyone. All right. So thanks for filling out that poll, and please feel free to go ahead and elaborate on your response in the chat. If you don't think hydraulic rim brakes are odd, you can let us know. Please feel free to share your questions and comments in the chat throughout the event. We'll be monitoring as we go, and we'll follow up with any questions we can't answer and other useful links in an email, including the recording of tonight's presentation. We will email to you after tonight. Moving on, I would like to acknowledge that those of us in Seattle tonight are on Duwamish native lands. And so if you would like to make rent payments directly to the Duwamish tribe to support the revival of Duwamish culture and the vitality of the Duwamish tribe, you can do so at Real Rent Duwamish. Jess is sharing that link in the chat. If you are not in Seattle, you can use this resource to learn about whose native lands you may be living or recreating on. So there is a map there that we're going to share with you to learn more if you're not in Seattle. So with all of that, I would like to introduce Seth Short, who has been a Bikeworks employee for 4 years and is currently a recycle and reuse coordinator. The Recycle and Reuse Department is responsible for building hundreds of bikes every year, as well as processing and sorting thousands of bike donations. Seth is the founder of the very popular Instagram page, Bike Crap. I think many of you are here tonight from there, as well as other popular zines of the same name. You have to DM him on Instagram to order copies of the zine. So that's how you get the print copy. So without further ado, I would like to pass it over to Seth to share his original presentation of the odd, obscure, weird, wild, and wonderful innovations of the cycling industry.
All right, thank you. That's short. Some of you may have met me working at Bikeworks, typically in the warehouse. If you ever came in on a Saturday or Wednesday, if you ever came into VRP back in the normal times or open shop, you would have seen me and some of my many peers who are all in different videos. If you've ever worked at Bikeworks or work there now and your video's up, put your hands in the air or throw up some sort of cool sign that's family friendly. So those are all the people. So now you know. And before I even start, I'll say all the cool bike crap stuff you're seeing now could not have been done without all the people at Bikeworks, particularly my compatriots in the recycle and reuse department and shop. They're the people that we see all this wacky stuff, and then they all tell me, and then I can share it with the world. So let's see, is my screen shared? Here we go. All right, we're going to share my screen here, and then I'm going to pull up PowerPoint. All right, can everybody see that? Cool. All right, we're going to slideshow mode. All right, so this is my slideshow. Odd, old, weird, wonderful, etc. First things first, it's kind of going to be a little recap from what Elise and Ed and some others have said. So here's a picture of me and Steve, who's the manager of the Recycle and Reuse Department, at a location we call the MRF, which is the Material Resources Facility, or some deviation of those letters. But it's run by a place called Cleanscape Ecology. They have a partnership with us all over town at the transfer stations. People can drop off bikes to be donated to us. They all go to this one facility. We go there twice a week, and we pick up the bikes, sort through them, and then take them back to Bikeworks. This is like where we get about half or more of our bikes per year. So it's where a lot of our weird stuff is originated. Like you heard, I'm on the recycle and reuse team. So it's our job to sort through all the donations, decide if they're worth keeping. Stuff that we can't personally use at Bikeworks is rather redonated to other organizations, people who will send them overseas, or to people who can use them that just aren't us, or they'll be scrapped down, melted, and turned into new bike stuff. I put in my little PBS NPR type quote here. This show is supported in part due to generous donations from viewers like you, because all the bikes we get are donated. We couldn't do it without people. And really all that kind of moves us down the list to the bike industry. There is one standard, and that standard is there are no standards at all. It is complete chaos. It's anarchy. There are no rules in the bike industry. Anybody who's ever tried to replace a part and went to a shop and just said, yeah, I just need a derailleur, my derailleur broke. And then all of a sudden the mechanic says, well, how many speeds is your derailleur? How big are your chain rings? What brand is it? Blah, blah, blah. And then you realize, oh, I have like no clue what's going on. So just multiply that by like 1,000. That's kind of what we're dealing with in the bike industry. And that's all the kind of stuff that led us down to me one day thinking like, oh, we should make a cool Instagram page to kind of share all this stuff with the world. There's a big wide world of bike mechanics out there, hobbyists and professionals alike, who are all just seeing all this wacky stuff every day. And all the normal people in their life who haven't dedicated their life to the pursuit of fixing bikes, when they try to explain all these weird bike things they see to them, it's like speaking Latin. And so now we're all in a big group, and the people who follow my page are pretty well learned. So we've actually crowdsourced a lot of questions to them. So we're going to get started in the old category. We've got two things here. This is kind of like the safety, quote unquote safety category. We got this old seat here. This was donated to us on a bike. And the day it came in, we were actually having open shop. One of our usual volunteers was there, and he was like, oh, well, that exact seat was on my parents' bike when I was a kid, and I would sit in it and they would drive me around. So I can confirm children who rode this, at least most of them did survive. At least one of them did. If you put this on your bike now, you're probably going to get narked on to the police for endangering your child. So we made a lot of big improvements from there. And then we've got the skid lid over here. This is what passed for a helmet back in the day. I think SPD might still let you off the hook if you're wearing it, but I wouldn't risk it. So next we've got some old, cool, these are like long surviving parts of the bike world. Every bike shop probably has a bin filled with some of these old patch kits, but the highlight of them would be the tubular tire patch kit here. Tubular tires are everyone's favorite way to spend way more time than they need to getting their tire on their rim. And now all the French randonniers and everyone else can additionally spend extra time when they're in a mountainside in the Swiss Alps sewing their tire back together and trying to re-glue it so that they're not trapped. Been a shout out too to Wald. If anybody knows me, they know I'm from Kentucky and spent most of my life there before moving to Seattle. Wald, who is better known now for making those cool front baskets that everybody sees, is based out of Maysville, Kentucky, which is in northeastern Kentucky. So shout out to them. They're still making all their stuff there. All right, how do I go to the next page? All right, so here's a real look at how far we've come as an industry. We all talk about how the bike industry, a lot of technological advancements at best are a 2 steps forward, 1 step back type situation. When we look at stuff like these, we can see that we've all taken many steps forward. This disc brake was on a bike that was branded from JCPenney. So that automatically tells you how old it is. It's probably the oldest disc brake I've seen. The rotor was about 3 times as thick as your modern day disc brake rotor, but it did actually still work. And I'll say the rotor was true, which is pretty rare and uncommon for any disc brake rotor you see nowadays. This can't be, this is the front derailleur here in case anybody doesn't know what they're looking at. Campignolo made this, but it was a design made by a few different companies that I've seen, like Saks and Simplex and stuff. What makes this unique, this is Allie holding it, by the way, and they are a recycle and reuse coordinator alongside me and Steve. This part under their thumb is where the cable connects, and it pulls down and pushes a piston all the way through the middle of this body, and that's what shifts over here. So it's a very different design from any front derailleur you would see nowadays. All these pictures and stuff that I'm going to be showing, by the way, are on the Bike Crap Instagram account. Most of which there will be additional pictures so you can get different looks. And then in this case too, there's actually a video where you can see the derailleur actuating. And then here, did somebody say something? Down here we've got an old shifter, the turtle lever, which is a large shifter right in the middle of the top tube of the bike. Pretty funky stuff. So now we're going to go to Odd. First, I'll point out this. This is the original Warehouse Wizard, Mike Buendia's old single-speed bike. He's somewhere in the video. So we're going to give him away when we come back. This was the Biologic Free Drive. A thing that was designed for single-speed bikes to, in theory, keep your chain clean. But in reality, what it did was create a giant closed chamber for all water, dirt, grit, and grime to get inside of and bounce around, and then focus all of its strength on totally trashing your chain while also being incredibly loud. But it does look super cool. We can all agree. Anyways, I think that thing was on Mike's bike for less than a week. Over here, we've got the aforementioned hydraulic rim brakes. They work just like hydraulic disc brakes, except instead of smashing a disc rotor, they are literally smashing your rims. I never use these on my bike. Some people had good things to say about them. Some people had things to say about them, such as that they would literally crush your rim in half, smash them, cause a blowout, heat up your rim till the bead like goes shooting out the side, whatever. The design is super cool. Down here is actually like a ball-shaped pivot. We had a weird run where since or before we never had any of those donated, and at one point in like a month we probably got like 3 or 4 pairs of them donated. So I don't know what was going on in Seattle that month, but pretty rad. So here we've got the original tubeless tire. No tubes required, just giant rolls of rubber that you can stick inside your special tires. A lot of the bike share bikes have setups similar to this. And this weight here, the 8.5 pounds, is the weight of the tire and like the faux tube that's inside. So people who aren't like weight weenie bike nerds might know that probably like an average hybrid commuter bike may weigh around like 25 pounds total. With this thing on your bike, it's gonna like weigh 30, 35 pounds total easy. We did sell these to some dude who was really stoked about them though, and I think he probably has not got a flat since, so that's pretty cool. He's probably still riding them and shredding around. I think he was a guy who lived on one of the islands. So this is our page about cool derailleurs. Derailleur technology has a thing that has changed greatly over the years, from when we just had our 5 little rings in the back. So over here on the left, we've got the Suntour XC Sport 3 jockey wheel derailleur. So for those of you keeping count, that's one more than every other derailleur ever produced other than this one. The idea was, instead of the cage being really long, to increase the size of the cassette load, to just add 3 sprockets. And I think probably eventually they just realized they could make a longer derailleur arm like everybody else. And then over here on the right side, the Suntour A1. So this is like the most proprietary derailleur of all time, to the point where literally you have to have a bike with a special attachment in the middle of your chainstay just to fit this derailleur. The only frames I've ever seen them on consistently is the crisscross, Schwinn crisscross, I believe. But in classic bike engineering sense, it's, you know, you fix one problem, which I'm not even exactly sure what problem this was meant to fix in this case, but you're fixing one problem and then you create another one. So it's like, cool, we got the derailleur way out here. It has fixed some sort of problem. And if you look back here where the normal derailleur would mount, there's an extra proprietary guard to keep the chain from derailing back there. So if you don't have both, it's just another total mess. Anyways, they're kind of cool if they work. They're really a pain to set up. I've adjusted a few of them, and almost every time just wished I could totally take them all off the bike, put on a regular derailleur. But if you ever see a crisscross, look at that rear chainstay. You may have one of the cool, funky Centaur A1 setups. So here we got some cool saddles. We're into the obscure section. On the left, we got the mustache saddle. You know, I rode it. I put it on a bike and rode it. Literally every time I pedaled, I was just like sliding off the front of the bike. I don't know exactly who it's for. I'm sure somebody's really into it. And then on the right, we have my favorite saddle of all time. Maybe my favorite donation of all time, which is the hammock saddle. This was made in Wisconsin. I guess sometime in the 70s. It's literally a one-person hammock that you put on your bike and then you can just cruise around on. It feels pretty good. It's still under my bench. I have big plans one day to build a bike around this thing that I can ride with everyone when we're all allowed to ride together again. So look out. Let's keep going. So this is obscure. We got some more. This is kind of like a grab bag of just stuff that we thought was fun or neat. So the first thing we got is this is another disc rotor. I thought it was funny because everything on bikes pretty much at this point has been so over accessorized, over just like had the aesthetic change and all these different things. Everybody wants to express themselves with like their funky bike parts. This is the only rotor somehow I've ever seen that had cool designs on it. So if anybody is like into machining, you know, and wants to get a little racket going, maybe some designer cool rotors could be like a fun thing for people. I've got a lot of ideas of what we could put on them. So let me know and we can team up. The double bottle cage, of all the things I've posted on the Bike Crap Instagram, this is like in the top 5 most liked photos. I don't know what exactly it is about it, other than the fact that it's just gratuitous and weird. The best part about the double, so this is just literally just a little iron mount, allows you to put 2 bottle cages on top of each other. Kind of the killer aspect of this is that literally over here on the down tube, you can see that there are mounts for another bottle cage that are unused. So somebody was like so into the idea of just having 2 bottles stacked on top of each other, they installed this weird thing instead of using their second bottle. Down here, we've got the SRAM 9.0 Woody. So this isn't actually made out of wood, unfortunately. It would be really cool if it was, but Cannondale, which is, of all the bike companies that exist, probably one of the ones that has contributed most to the bike crap weird aesthetic. They go for it with like crazy ideas more than anybody. Back in the day, they designed a bike that the frame looked wooden, all the components looked wooden, everything. So this is unfortunately the only thing from that set that's ever rolled in, but there's a matching front derailleur and shifters for this too. And they're pretty cool. And then over here, we've got Vans branded brake shoes. And I recently discovered they still make these new. So if anybody's looking for a last minute stocking stuffer for the Vans enthusiasts in their life who also happens to have, a bike that needs a new pair of brake pads, They make these in all different colors. Could be pretty cool. I don't need any new brake pads, so nobody buy them for me. Obscure. So these are some fun. Nowadays everybody's obsessed with the Peloton and the Zwift and the Strava. They got their headphones in riding, myself included. So back in the day, people didn't have it so easy other than being alone with their thoughts on a ride. All they might have to do is listen to the AM radio on this cool attachment. So it's attached literally around your stem. This is still for sale in the warehouse, so if somebody's trying to look for this at the next sale, plays all the AM stations, so you can pick up the local sporting events, your coast-to-coast AM, the weather report. I don't know what else they play on AM radio. Golden oldies, maybe. Then we got a classic CompuTrainer over here. This is just, the design of it kind of like cracks me up. But then my favorite thing we have is the EraserMate Challenge here. So this is an unofficial Nintendo peripheral. So if you're part of the Vintage Gamer coalition of people who collect old games, if you're trying to collect all the old Nintendo licensed products, you don't have to worry about collecting the EraserMate Challenge too. It's not an officially licensed product, but they did make this cool thing. So I've only got these two pictures, but this full product included a trainer, a heart rate monitor, all that kind of stuff. It was a full at-home training kit. It would display your speed, your wattage, output, your heart rate, your cadence. It was pretty rad. And they even at one point, RacerMate was selling modded Nintendo Entertainment Systems that fit different versions of this trainer. And then you could go, see what the 8-bit versions of the Swiss Alps looked like, or, the American West, in case you ever wondered what that would look like. There you go. And there are videos online on YouTube of guys hooking these up and riding them. If you really want to get a better look, it's pretty cool. So now we're into the weird section. This is one of my favorite kind of subcategories of donations we get. I love do-it-yourself, just weirdness, especially in a year like 2020. We all just need hobbies that we can sink our time into. And this is literally, this is the kind of stuff we would probably see in a normal month. But these are some of the highlights. So over here, we've got a folding bike. Pretty cool. The coolest thing about this folding bike, other than the long stem, you could collapse, is the spigot nozzle here. So this is clearly from the Lowe's Home and Garden section. Just unscrew that, fold your bike in half. There you go. Down here we've got the little razor. This is kind of a folding bike too in a way. Once again, plastic wheels, so these will never go flat. Rear suspension for when you got to hit those bumps. Up here we've got, this is actually one of the first things we took a picture of and posted on the Instagram page, but it's a skiing bike. The coolest thing about this thing is that it's a bike made for snowy terrain, and it's made out of wood partially, which, I don't know if anybody knows a lot about the physics of wood, but it's known to warp and degrade in cold weather sometimes and when exposed to water. So there's probably a reason this was redonated to us. And then down here we've got this fun military parade BMX bike with the dummy shells. These are not live rounds, fortunately. This was donated to us by a guy who made it for his son to ride in a military parade or something. And then the parade was over, and so we donated to us, and then we allowed it to move on to the next group of people who could ride it around in parades and stuff. Some more weird random stuff. We got the Fuji Course Town. This was a bike that was just slipped past the quality department Q&A. Somebody was having a smoke break, I guess, while this one went through the line. I posted this online, and some people from the community cycling center down in Portland sent me a bunch of pictures too. They had of like different bike frames that all had like major spelling errors on them. We've got this kind of continues the aesthetic. This is a light, by the way, if people couldn't tell, but it kind of continues the aesthetic of the military bike from the last one. It's just a light that's meant to look like the barrel of a revolver. Down here, this is one of our most legendary donations ever. It is a videotape that was recorded with the movie Quicksilver, which is a 1980s bicycling movie starring Kevin Bacon. If anybody hasn't seen it, he's a Wall Street executive of some sort who decides to leave it all behind, man, and live authentically out on the streets as a bike messenger. And there's some really cool scenes where he goes to like hang out with all the fixie dudes, and they're doing like tricks, and it's a pretty silly movie. But anyways, the funniest part about this is that it was videotaped over some like Seattle water and utilities like lecture. Somebody was like, "Nah, dude, I need to watch Quicksilver instead." And then they watched it, and I guess they probably got the DVD eventually, and then donated this to us. So it's still in the shop. If anybody has a VCR and really wants to relive that, come to the shop and make us a deal sometime. Here we've got an offsetting piece of machined thing for your saddle. It's kind of just like a funky thing to get you a little extra setback, but when I posted that, a lot of people were really into it, so I always throw it into the slideshows. And then here we've got the Barney Rubble spoke reflector. This is the very first thing I posted on the Bikegram Instagram page. Pretty cool. I still have that as well on my workbench. More weird stuff. All right, so this is like the page that this whole thing is built around. Is we got Soft Ride, the pride of Bellingham, Washington, really the pride of Washington State, if we're all going to be honest. This is like when I post a Soft Ride thing, everybody from Washington all has like a story of how Soft Ride has like personally affected their lives. And people who aren't from Washington are like, what in God's name am I looking at here? And there's a company who went for it, They made a lot of cool suspension products back in the day. And at the peak, so they started in '89. At the peak of like Soft Ride, they mostly did a lot of road stuff. Triathletes were really into it. So in 1996, at the Ironman World Championship, 14.7% of the total racers were riding Soft Rides in the races. So there were 126 Soft Ride bikes at that race. And I think Steve, who works at Bike Works, rode a Soft Ride in the ski to see one year. So you can ask him about that at some point. But anyways, they're super cool. I have this beam from this cross ride saved. I'm going to build it into a really cool bike at some point as soon as I find a 62 centimeter frame with a nice slanted top tube. I'm sure that one will get donated any day now that I can really build up. They also made, extra suspension parts such as the stem. And then this is kind of like a different funky Soft Ride. It's got like the carbon beam is like built into the frame. That's like a pretty recent donation, which we still have at the warehouse. So if anybody like is trying to get that and build it up, talk to us. We'll make a deal with you. Let's see what's next. Okay, so this is we're into the wild section. So who here remembers like 3 summers ago when one day you just walked outside and there were 800 bike rental bikes of every color of the rainbow just clogging up every street corner. And then a week later, they were not just on the street corner, but on top of buildings, trees, major waterways, wherever. So this is kind of like one day at the MRF, the Cleanscape Ecology Center, where all the bikes get sent from the transfer stations. We opened up one of the bins, and this is just kind of what we were looking at. About 7 to 10 of these bikes, which were I kind of took some freedoms by saying they were tossed in the Puget Sound. We really don't know where exactly these things came from, but they were definitely in water, and these were definitely the homes of some sort of underwater creature. And we still see these every now and then. People will find one. And I also saw on Craigslist about 3 months ago, somebody was trying to sell a Lime bike for like $300. So down in Tacoma. So if anybody's in the Tacoma area and wants a Lime bike for a real good price, may still be on there. So we got some more cool stuff here on the right. Got a homemade 4-seater tandem. This thing weighed about 200 pounds. If anybody's ever ridden a tandem before, they know it can be a little tricky, but if everything is set up properly, it's not so bad. So classic tandem trait is all the crank arms will kind of be synced up, right? So what's going on if you look at this tandem? You got 1, 2, 3, 4 crank arms, all facing different directions. It's like when you are in like a bank or something, and they have all the clocks from like Tokyo, Japan, London, and they're all facing different times. That's kind of what this reminded me of when I was looking at it. And then shout out to the rear crank, which is a 1-piece, just for like the massive downgrade for whoever's like the mega stoker back there. Yeah, pretty wild creation, but also you got to give it to whoever actually managed to get this thing put together. It's pretty crazy. And then on the left, we've got, so I just featured the head badge from this thing, but this is a Fuji folding bike that is branded by Marlboro, the cigarette company. So Fuji made non-branded versions of these, which you could just buy at a shop for like $400 or something. But if you were a Marlboro smoker, you could redeem 2,200 Marlboro points and then pay an additional $100, $110, and you get one of these mailed to you. So for people like me who aren't smokers, who don't know the math on that, so you would receive 5 Marlboro miles, is what they call them, 5 miles for a cigarette pack. So to get the 2,200 miles, you'd have to smoke 440 packs of cigarettes, then also pay $110, and then you would get one of these things. So as a result, a lot of people who got these didn't really ride them. So when you see them, they're usually in pretty good shape, which this one was when it was donated to us. Yeah, pretty wild. So I haven't seen a cigarette license bike since, which, never too late. It could still happen. I got some more. This is kind of another grab bag page. On the left, we've got the grip shift service hotline. So this is on the back of an instruction manual on how to repair grip shifts. So everybody in the chat can all share their favorite grip shift recabling stories. I'm sure everybody has only good memories of doing that. That involve literally breaking the grip shift apart, having all the little pieces fly out, pulling the cable out, rethreading it, and then trying to smash it back together. So like the funniest thing about this to me is, and why I thought it was so hilarious, is because if you've ever worked in a bike shop, or just like taking your bike to a shop and seen like a frustrated mechanic when tempers are running a little high, you don't have to imagine too much how underpaid these poor people who are working at this customer hotline must have been. I'm sure that was a rough few years for them, but SRAM turned it around. Their newer grip shifter models are a little easier to work with. In the middle, we got one of my favorite saddles that isn't a hammock. It's the Jar Jar Binks saddle. This was if you were at Walmart in around the year 2000. This may have been a saddle on a bike that you saw. Really, what's funny to me about it is that you're sitting on a screaming Jar Jar Binks face, which is a pretty unpopular character, so some people may have found some vindication in that. I honestly think he got a bad shake. I think we should bring him back for the new trilogy. I think that could have really turned things around for that new trilogy. All right, we can leave our Jar Jar opinions in the chat too. And then over here on the right, it's just the rear end of of an old Marin mountain bike. So if that suspension looks weird to you, it's because it is literally just a front fork that has been refitted to be a rear suspension. So back in the day, people are still kind of trying to figure out rear suspension. Other than it's kind of along with rear derailleurs and a lot of other things, people are still trying to figure out like what's the best system back here. Marin just decided, we've already got these front forks. Why not just put them in the back? We could really save a lot of money in the R&D department. So that was a bike we got pretty recently, and we sold it to a guy who his like primary bike related hobby is working on suspension bikes. So he's going to get it back up and running, and he messaged me today asking if I had a soft ride stem I could sell him. So this bike's going to be back out there soon with a front suspension, a rear suspension, a soft ride stem, and what I can only suspect will also be a suspension seat post. So yeah, next time you're at Duthie or Tiger Mountain, look out. You may see a real rad Marin just shredding through all the berms. All right, now we're in the good category, the wonderful category. So having made it through all of our weird and wacky and stuff, I'll reiterate too that we love all the donations, and anybody who's in the bike industry laughing at all this stuff also would easily admit that everybody who gets into biking and mechanics like does it because they love bikes, and for better or worse, it's stuff that they're super into. And shout out to all those weird inventions that were made so that we could eventually get to the good stuff. You got to work through the bad so you can get to the good. And I'll say nobody in the bike industry does it for money, that's for sure. So we all got to do it for the love of the game. And also, it's fun. So anyways, here on the left, we got a Chinelli mountain bike frame. So it's like a thing that came in. We're like, whoa, Chinelli mountain bike frame. That seems pretty rare, right? Like nobody had ever seen a Chinelli mountain bike frame. We posted it on the page. People start tagging Antonio Colombo, who's like the Chinelli guy in Italy. And then Antonio Colombo shows up and is like, oh yeah, Gary Fisher made these for us for a few years. They were like the first Italian mountain bikes. And then like Gary Fisher pops up in the chat. He's like, oh yeah, Antonio, it was great working for you. And they were all like reminiscing and stuff. And then neither of them followed the page, which was like a personal spite to me. I felt like, gotta follow the page, man. It's just what you do, follow for follow. But they're older, they're older, they're like boomers. So maybe they just don't know the proper Instagram etiquette that all of us millennials have come to know and love. Then we got the Volkswagen dude over here. So this is from a Volkswagen branded Trek. I mostly just love this design, like the guy riding a rocket ship for some reason. He's like wearing a helmet. He has a helmet, but he's not wearing it. So I guess he's like realized that if you're on a rocket ship that's crashing into Earth, like the helmet's probably not going to be the thing that saves you. But it's on a cool, Volkswagen Jettas were making Trek branded Jettas for a while that came with these specific versions of Trek multi-tracks. There's some more just cool stuff. Shout out to Klein, which was a company in Chehalis that made like super cool, super beautiful frames. We see a lot of them, fortunately, due to our proximity to them. And great musician Frank Ocean, he rides a Klein. So you can look that up and know that it has like the added street cred. Got the Shimano Golden Arrow. That's like a classic Shimano road group set. Very beautiful. Time Attack, which is like a brand that made a lot of really cool pedals that performance-wise people really like, but what gets me is the aesthetics. I'm like a platforms, flats kind of dude. Some cool head badges. There's always just like a lot to be appreciated from the aesthetics of bike frames and designs. So these are all badges that I peeled off frames that were destroyed in some way. And then we've got for the redemption arc in the soft ride store, we've got a Cirrus body float seat post. So Cirrus Cycles is run by the same guys who started soft ride up in Bellingham. And when soft ride closed, they kind of just kept doing their thing, working on cool suspension solutions. And now they're making these, and they work pretty well, and people really like them. They've had a couple come through the shop. More wonderful stuff. We got the Cannondale Black Lightning on the left. That's a Cannondale road bike that has all black components. And I'm actually working on another one that got donated right now, but I always thought these were like super cool. People really like them when they come in. This was a new old stock Greg LeMond Pursuit bar attachment that got donated to us for all the Minnesotans out there, such as our outgoing and incoming executive directors. Lamont is also a Minnesotan, which is pretty cool to me because I have a lot of connections to Minnesota as well. And look in the history books, he is still the only Tour de France winner from the United States. You can look really hard to some certain years in the 2000s, but it's crazy. It's like there weren't even any winners those years, so I don't know who actually won. It's weird. Yeah, anyways, you all know where I'm going with that. And then we got the super necessary titanium bottle cage bolts. You know, you got to save your 1 gram of weight. I had a friend who worked at a shop in like the 80s, and he said they would sell these for like $70. And the second they sold them to one roadie, the next week like 3 more would come in, because like if one guy had them, they all had to have them, you know. And he said they must have made like thousands of dollars selling these titanium bottle cage bolts. So I think we probably sold those for like $3 to somebody. So I made a zine too. If you want a copy of the zine, just find me on @BikeCrap on Instagram. Here's an old tweet of Kanye West telling people how to pronounce the word zine correctly, back before he had like kind of a total public meltdown, which, you know, is what it is. But he made a couple zines himself, and he wanted people to make sure they were pronouncing them right so they weren't embarrassing themselves. So thank you, Kanye. Very cool. Here's a picture from the zine. I had a couple pages of some analog bike memes I made, because I know not everybody wants to spend all day on their smartphone just to see memes. If people don't know what slime is, it's like a thing you put inside your tube that in theory seals up the tube when it punctures you. But if you're a mechanic, you've definitely had this stuff like spray all over you at some point. So there's a little bit of Ghostbusters action. We've all been slime. I had a pair of shoes that were stained from slime that I wore for like 3 years, and I never got that stain out. Eventually, the shoes, like, you know, I blew out holes in them, but the stain was still there. So that's pretty much it. Thank you to everybody who watched this. Thank you to Cleanscape, Recology, who are our external partners who help us do a lot of this stuff. Everybody who's ever volunteered at Bikeworks, donated us stuff. Shopped at the shop, shopped at the warehouse, donated us their mental time. And to all the people at bike companies who make all these weird and amazing things. And, you know, we wouldn't have all the cool stuff and easy living we have now with all them. So that's pretty much it. We'll do some question and answers now, I think. And
Yeah.
stop my screen share.
Thank you, Seth. I think you nailed the celebration and send up of the cycling industry. We're gonna take some questions for Seth. If you have a question, let us know in the chat and we'll call on you and you can ask your question. And just remember to be aware of leaving space and time for others to ask questions as well. So let us know in the chat if you have questions or comments about anything.
Yeah, I'm reading the comments now. There was some pretty funny. Slim Pickens on the Volkswagen logo. Yeah, that's a good call. I think that's definitely must be who that is a reference to. So much stuff going on. Yeah, if anybody has any questions, now's the time to ask. Have I ever built a bike from scratch? I've never built a frame. I've never done any like welding type stuff, but I have built mini bikes from the frame set up. So both the bikes I have now, which is a Surly cross check, I built up from the frame and fork, and then I built up a cross sliding bolt as well. What's the one weird item I wish would be donated? A slingshot frame. So does anybody know what a slingshot frame is? They're basically bike frames where you've got the top tube and you've got the seat tube, but the diagonal tube that goes in the middle is literally just like a metal string or some kind of cable or something. Somebody may be able to explain it better than me. I've never actually seen one in person. I've only seen them. They only exist in Apocrypha to me.
John, are you out there? Did you have a question? I think we missed you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, Seth. What's your advice on buying a bike when you live in a small town with no bike world?
Gee, that's tough. I would say, because I've been in this situation many times in my life leading up to now. You kind of, I would look on like places like Craigslist, OfferUp, or Facebook Marketplace for like nearby towns, and just look for bikes there, and maybe look for some sort of hobbyist or collector who is like getting rid of their old stuff, or maybe just even look on a place like eBay. We just sold at Bikeworks. We just sold a bunch of frames and stuff on eBay and shipped them all over. So that's kind of what I would suggest. You kind of just have to get lucky. Whatever you do, never buy a bike from a department store or big box store that is not an actual bike shop, because you'll pay for that bike 3 or 4 times over with how much fixing and replacing you're gonna have to do on it.
Wendy, do you have a question?
Who?
Wendy.
Mike.
Hey, Seth. I was wondering if y'all, as in Bikeworks, have ever thought about maybe having an ultimate bike bike built up, like all the crappiest parts you can get on one bike, and then maybe auctioning it off at Bike Excitement. Follow up, what would be on that bike?
I've kind of thought about this, and I have kind of been hoarding stuff for that. So when I mentioned earlier that I had taken that Soft Ride carbon beam adapter, I was going to get that, and I was going to put the seat on top of that. Wheels, I would love to have a nice pair of like mag rims. Maybe the Drama Coach. If you follow the Instagram, you saw the mag rims that I posted from a bike that said like Drama Coach on them. And then maybe for the drivetrain, we could do some sort of, what was the system? The double something. It's a Cannondale system where it's 2 derailleurs in the back instead of 1. You have an internal derailleur and a traditional derailleur built into the same thing. So you have like a 1x27 speed bike. Maybe a dual drive. That's what it was. Thank you, Mike. Yeah. There's a dual drive on the Bike Crap page somewhere if you scroll back far enough. So I could do that, and then maybe we could get, with brakes, we'd probably just have to do some kind of funky rim brakes. We could really get a party started with that kind of bike, and I would like to be able to ride it a few times, and then we could auction it off to somebody who then it would be like their weird bike they got to ride around with.
Great idea. Maybe we should have ex-warehouse wizards come back to Bike Excitement to help build it up.
Yeah.
Grace, did you have a question? Are you with us, Grace? I think
You're
might
muted if you are.
We can't hear you.
You're super quiet. I can see your bird though.
We can't hear you, but I think you put in the chat your question is the biggest contradiction on a bike you've seen.
Oh, geez. Oh, okay. Actually, I know exactly what that is, because I was scrolling through all my old posts last night. Huffy made a bike. The esteemed road road biking brand Huffy. They made a bike that the model name was just the Titanium, but it was not a titanium bike. It was made out of very heavy stovepipe-esque steel. So if you go back further in the bike crap on the timeline, eventually you'll see it's a black frame with like a Bianchi Celeste type color, and I'm sure they got somebody with it, but that was a pretty good contradiction on there.
Handa or Honda? Are you still with us with your question?
Honda doesn't have a mic. Just spell it out for us, Honda, literally.
Your dream build for the hammock seat.
My dream build, I mean, other than the weird soft ride thing, that was kind of like,
For the hammock seat.
the crazy thing involving that. But I think the hammock seat would be really cool to have on like some sort of like super cruisery bike, like the most chill, easy living kind of bike that is very comfortable to ride, but could not face any hill stronger than 1 degree. That's kind of the vibe for that. I feel like it would be a betrayal of the hammock seat to put it on any bike that could go faster than 10 miles an hour on flat ground.
Next question, our board member, Patrick McQueen.
Yeah, so in your opinion, what's crappier, like super high-end fancy bike parts that are obsolete in like a year or two, or just like super weird funky design stuff but it lasts forever?
I think the high-end stuff, 100%. The funky old stuff that lasts forever, like, will always have a place. I mean, people come in all the time looking for all that old funky stuff. They're like, I just need this like special proprietary bolt that will attach this thing, and we always have it, and it's all good. And when you always know, like, once you put it back on that bike, it's like another 30 years in the hole that thing's gonna work. New bike stuff, it's like the super high end is so crazy. There's just like so many small moving parts. That's like what it comes down to. It's like old funky stuff is like, it'll be like 5 big moving parts. New funky stuff, it's like 1,000 little springs, screws, and it's like, dude, the second one of those things goes shooting off into the corner of the shop, or like breaks or rusts out or strips, it's like, yeah, we can order you another $400 one off QVP. It'll be here next week.
Rob, are you with us? All right, Rob. I think Rob, that was more of a comment than a question. Sorry, I'm catching up now. All right, I think if I missed anybody, you can ask it now.
I see one about the Peloton. I've not ridden a Peloton. I could see how it would be fun. I like riding stationary bikes in the winter and just like watching TV and stuff. I've never used any of the transaction-based ones where like you're riding one and like a live human being is talking to you. That might be kind of weird, or maybe it'd be kind of nice this time of year, talking to a live human being, even if it's through like a screen that's like yelling at you to pedal faster. I don't know. The only thoughts I have about Peloton is that commercial they put out last Christmas was really weird, with like the crying lady who got it from her husband. That seemed like a
Misfire.
Yeah.
All right, well, if you have more questions, you can find Seth at Bike Crap on Instagram. You can also get in touch with Bikeworks with your bike-related questions, and we'll find you someone to talk through your bicycle problems and queries. And with that, I think our executive director, Deb Stalls, is going to close us out for the night.
Yeah, thank you again, Seth. That was awesome. And thank you for everyone for joining us tonight. And if you haven't yet, I hope you'll consider doing a year-end gift for Bikeworks. And we'll throw that link up in the chat. we are able to do series like this and offer like giveaways and free programming and sliding scale programming because of wonderful supporters like you. So we really appreciate everything that you do for us and to support BikeWorks. And also, I just want to say I feel very blessed to have worked at BikeWorks for the past 10 years and work with all the amazing staff and board, community supporters and partners that we have. So I just want to say thank you so much. It's hard to leave BikeWorks because it's so cool, but it's also pretty easy to leave because I know it's in very good hands, and Ed's going to make an awesome next leader. So I'm super stoked about that. And I'll be cheering on from the sidelines. So thanks again for joining us tonight. And yeah, just reach out to any of us if you have any questions going forward. And next month we'll have another great event. And so just look out for that.
All right. Thank you everybody for joining us. We will email out the recording of the presentation.
Cool. And yeah, follow me on Instagram at @bike_crap for more stuff. And you can always send a message on there too. If you're looking for any weird, wacky stuff in the warehouse, it's kind of become like another way to communicate with us. We've put a lot of people in touch with their weird dream parts recently, including a soft ride suspension stem for someone who really needed one bad. So it's another BikeWorks miracle, another dream come true, thanks to the warehouse and generous donations from people. So
thanks everyone. Thanks Seth, that was awesome. Bye.
later, y'all.